Hey guys, welcome back to part 4 of the Canary series. And this is going to be chapter 4, the value in a voice. Shinzo didn't know what he had been expecting from Yuei's general studies course. All he could think of when he entered Class 1C for the first time was he just needed to last until the sports festival. That was where he could make his mark, where he could show the world, more specifically Yuei's principal Nezu, that he deserved a place in the heroics course. He just had to plow forwards, focus on his studies, and everything would be okay. He had no plans on making friends. That would be a consequence of not planning on remaining in Class 1C for long enough to make friends. Even then, no intention crossed his mind of making more than an acquaintance with any possible classmate from the hero course. He had more pressing matters to attend to, that being focusing on achieving his dreams of becoming a hero. He'll show the world that he wasn't a villain. Far from it. But then that shy, bushy-haired boy, the one that sat in front of Shinzo, caught his attention. He'd never met anyone else who found speaking more than a trivial part of everyday life, who understood its value and its consequences, of course. Of course, there was bound to be a different reason behind this Midoriya's selective muteness than any issue Shinzo had faced. But then he found out he was quirkless. He had no plans on making friends. Really, Shinzo just wanted to help him. The thing is, with someone who had struggles with speaking, it's often to come down to people around them. He was curious. He wouldn't deny it. But being quirkless? That made a lot of sense. Suddenly, Shinzo had found someone who he could really relate to, and not on the problems with speaking front. It was an easy conclusion to make. Midoriya had been bullied at his old school, or possibly schools, for his quirklessness, and subsequently developed some serious problems because of it. He had no plans on making friends, but maybe Midoriya hadn't either. And that was something else they had in common. And, well, Midoriya hadn't shown the slightest ounce of fear confronted with Shinzo's quirk. And that might have been because Midoriya didn't speak and therefore wasn't easily mind-controlled. He was the first person he'd ever met who learned about his quirk and didn't immediately link it with that of a villain. In fact, he had said he could be a hero, and just for saying that, Midoriya was Shinzo's hero. Did you hear? Shinzo looked up from his phone. It was Kisho Shimizu. He had a twin in class, Kana, so the both awkwardly insisted they called them by their first names. A guy from the heroics course had been already expelled. Kisho finished, eyes wide. Well, Shinzo assumed they were. He had a hideous bowl cut, with a fringe so long that it covered his eyes. Shinzo felt his heart skip a beat. If someone had already been expelled, then there was a place open in the heroics course. Midoriya tapped him on the shoulder behind. Shinzo turned, only to see his friend grin. President Mike won his bet. Shinzo smirked. Yeah, I guess he did. The person who was expelled must have been from Eraserhead's class. I've heard of him. He's so cool. His quirk erases other people's quirks by looking at them. He so effectively fights quirkless. That does sound cool. Kind of cool. How come I've never heard of him before? He's an underground hero. They tend to avoid the press. Sounds like the kind of hero I want to be, Shinzo thought. Yeah, he could see himself in Eraserhead's class. Hey, what are you talking about? Interjected Matsumoto. He sat behind Shinso in class and was one of the few who still insisted on wearing those stupid name tags. None of your business was what Shinso was going to say. Oh, hi, Midoriya, right? Interjected Goneko, the girl with the cat ears, before Shinso could say those words. Can you tell him I said hi? She asked Shinso. He's mute, not deaf, Shinso retorted spitefully. Oh, sorry, she exclaimed. There was something wrong with your... So, is there something wrong with your voice, or what? Midoriya like he was absolutely ready to roll on the floor and die. Shinso was totally there with him. Rude much, Kaneko? Snapped Oshi. That girl was hardly ever in a good mood. Sorry, the cat girl replied. She sounded somehow offended. Come on, Midoriya, let's go to lunch, Shinso insisted, already getting up and heading towards the door. Sorry about her, Oshi told Midoriya as he hurried after Shinso. I've only known her for a couple of days, and I can already tell she's too curious for her own good. Midoriya just nodded frantically and almost ran out of the door behind Shinso. They didn't say anything, almost per tradition. As they walked down to the cafeteria, Shinso ordered for Midoriya, who had the same thing as he did. And they even sat down on the same table. Shinso could tell this would be exactly what Wade would be doing for the next who knows how long. I wonder what that guy did to get expelled, Shinso pondered as Midoriya picked at his food. He didn't seem like in the mood for talking, not even in time. Shinso tapped his chopsticks on the side of his bowl, something he'd noticed that Midoriya did to get his attention. It seemed to work both ways because Midoriya looked up almost immediately. Are you okay? Shinso sighed. Midoriya just sighed and shrugged. I know why you don't like talking. His eyes widened, clearly worried about what Shinso might have concluded. It's because of your quirklessness, isn't it? Midoriya's body slumped, his body language confirming Shinso's assumption. When I was in middle school, he continued, staring down at his food untouched, I had similar problems because of my quirk. Shinso didn't wait for a response from Midoriya. People just, as soon as they learned about it, they would stop talking to me, because they were worried that I'd take control. They wrote me off as a villain before even getting to know me. When people don't talk to you, it becomes a little bit harder to talk to them. Midoriya tapped the side of his bowl. Shinso looked up to see him sign. It's not that they didn't talk to me. I stopped talking because I hoped they would stop talking to me. Stop noticing me altogether. They didn't. It became too hard to talk anyway, Shinso finished for him. Oh, shit. But then it became too hard to talk anyway, Shinso finished for him. Midoriya nodded bleakly. The two sat in silence for a moment, both staring into space, thinking about everything, yet nothing at all. I know what you could cheer you up, Shinso said, making Midoriya jump. What? Making sign names for our classmates. Midoriya grinned. In sign language, specifically ASL, names had to be finger spelled unless they had a direct meaning, like hope or grace or something just like that. So instead of spelling out long names, people would come up with nicknames that had simple signs. It was easier in JSL because the kanji could be just used, but that took the fun out of it. Okay, so forget Kaneko. Her name literally means cat. There's no point. Midoriya started. No, interrupted Shinso. Everyone's getting sign names. Forget kanji and the proper meanings. Midoriya laughed. Actually laughed. It took Shinso by surprise. That was the first sound the other than occasional surprised squeal that he'd ever heard Midoriya make. Let's call Kaneko curious, Midoriya decided. Okay, tamer than I would have chosen, but let's go with it, replied Shinso. What about Oshi? Grump? Definitely. No one else here knows sign language, right? They would have said something. Okay, who else? Honestly, I'm not great with names. I hardly remember anyone. How about the twins? Kisho and Kana? Kana's the one with the glasses, right? We're calling her glasses, aren't we? Midoriya shrugged, still smiling broadly. And her brother can be Fringe. He laughed again. Fringe? Have you seen his hair? Terrible. What about the person who sits behind you in class? Matsumoto, Shinso told him. He can be Donkey. The laughter returned. What? Don't you think he looks like a donkey? A bit like Donkey Kong? No. They carried on like this for the rest of lunch, both barely eating anything, but neither of them seemed to mind. It had been a long time since Shinso really had this much fun with a friend, and it wasn't hard to conclude that Midoriya thought the same way. What they were doing wasn't particularly interesting. It was just normal, something that perhaps normal friends would get up to, laughing over stupid little things and making inside jokes that no one else would understand. But it wasn't normal for the two of them. They had never really had the chance to do something like this before. As lunch came to an end, and the two of them tidied away their trays and remaining food, Shinso could still see that beaming smile across Midoriya's face. Thoughts of rude questions and intrusive classmates left behind them. Unfortunately, that euphoria couldn't last forever. That afternoon, Class 1C joined up with Class 1D for a joint sports lesson. President Mike and whoever homeroom teacher for Class 1D was, Shinso didn't pay attention enough to care, had decided that they should do a team-building exercise so they'd all get to know each other a little more. And that was why they were ushered into one of the school's massive gyms, or just a huge hall that the newbie heroes would fight in, to play Team C versus Team D dodgeball. The rules are simple, President Mike cried out over the way too excited crowd of general studies. Get hit anywhere on the body and you're out. Unless it's the head, because that's cruel. Because that's cruel. If you catch a ball, someone of your choice can rejoin the game. Oh, and no crossing the line into each other's team side. We're starting off with your backs against the wall. Run to the middle and grab your ammo. And what about quirks? Called out Kaneko. For this first round, we'll say yes to quirks, as long as it's not going to seriously hurt anyone. We'll see how it goes and ban quirks the next round if it all goes wrong. Okay, you have 10 minutes or so to talk as a team and then we'll begin. Okay, guys, started Oshi, who was clearly aiming for the class representative position they would be choosing in a few days' time. Let's talk quirks. Anyone got anything useful for this? Shinso could feel Midoriya freaking out beside him. Shinso wasn't faring well either. He hadn't told anyone about his quirk. He didn't want anyone to make a bad impression. But did it really matter? He had Midoriya, and it was clear he wasn't about to be driven away. My quirk is absolutely useless, laughed Goro Tashibana. All I can do is turn things orange for like a day. A day? Repeated someone else. Oh yeah, once at my old school, my friends dared me to turn the whiteboard orange and the ink of our teachers' pens, so nothing would show up. I know it sounds kind of lame, but it was really fun at the time. Can he turn himself orange? Midoriya wondered. He often used sign language as he thought. He would mouth words too, occasionally. Midoriya asks if you can turn yourself orange, Shinso told him. Midoriya instantly blushed, clearly not expecting Shinso to repeat his thoughts. Yeah, if I want. I have more control over for that. I can turn it on or off whenever I please, Tashibana explained. Then why doesn't he turn in our side of the pitch orange and then himself so he blends in? Shinzo repeated the plan out. The class was more than impressed. They ended up going around the class, talking about quirks and asking Midoriya to come up with strategies around them. He made a rather mundane quirk into a serious advantage. Shinzo was shocked, but then he remembered Midoriya was the one with the 91% in the exam. He was really a genius. Both Shinzo and Midoriya were very relieved, however, when the other team complained that they were taking too long to strategize, and the teachers announced that the game had to start, or they'd have sufficient time to play enough rounds. 3, 2, 1, begin! President Mike cried out, and both teams charged forward to the middle of the pitch. Midoriya wasn't so keen and hung back while the rest of them dove right in. Shinzo did begin like the rest of them, but quickly hurried back to Midoriya as Tashibana turned the ground orange. Are you all right? He questioned, picking up a spare ball that had rolled towards him. Midoriya nodded, and then squealed rather loudly as he dodged a flying ball, which he seemed to register more as a missile rather than a softball. Sure, Shinzo insisted. He nodded again, dodging another projectile. The other team considered them good targets, considering they were standing still and hanging back. Midoriya, however, seemed to be exceptional at dodging. Shinzo wasn't sure if this was a good or a bad thing. He also wasn't sure what to think about how muscular his friend seemed. He looked so small and weak in his uniform, but his UA regulation PE kit showed otherwise. And Midoriya didn't seem to like the kind of workout, the kind to work out for fun or go for runs or something. Team C won the first round of dodgeball, and the second. Team C won the first round of dodgeball, and the second. Shinzo got hit in the head twice, but neither him or Midoriya were hit out. The third round was more interesting. Team D quickly realized the Tashibana's orange tactic and got him out as soon as possible. Kana and Kisho, who both had weak water manipulation quirks, were banned from using them at the opposing team. Had a heated argument against them and Oshi and about pouring water on the ball so they could make their throws more accurate. Oshi was hit out moments later, quickly followed by the twins, who now shouted very loudly at the remaining classmates. Shinzo stayed by Midoriya for most of the round. Midoriya had yet to throw a single ball and continued to dodge them expertly. Whilst Shinzo tried his hand at catching, mainly so he could let out Oshi back, so she would stop shouting at them. In the end, Midoriya was the only one left, and as it turns out, throwing was not one of his strongest points. Neither was catching. However, he was increasingly hilarious how worked up the last two members of Class 1D were getting, no matter how hard they tried. They could not hit Midoriya. It wasn't very helpful that one of them managed to catch one of Midoriya's throws, and they chose to let back one of their team members, who must have been some kind of accuracy or levitation quirk, because the dodgeball seems to change direction mid-air to zoom towards Midoriya. On my mark, announced Team D, player with the accuracy quirk. His other teammates stood, poised next to him, dodgeballs in hand, ready to throw. 3, 2, 1, now! Shinzo winced as the three projectiles were aimed perfectly at Midoriya. He had no way to escape. Well, that was everyone had thought, until Midoriya leaped at an exceptional height over the balls and did a front flip and landed perfectly. Okay, now the fitness is even more questionable. What was that? It was President Mike who yelled that. He had been commentating the entire time. The other players were so stunned that the next throw was poor enough for even Midoriya to catch it. And he catches it, President Mike exclaimed. Donkey. He signed Midoriya to Shinso. They forgot President Mike's new sign. Both were very thankful that he masked his laughter with coughing when Shinso told Matsumoto to rejoin the team. It wasn't long after that the last three members of Class 1D were hit out by Matsumoto, so Class 1C reigned victorious and undefeated. That was amazing, Midoriya exclaimed Koneko as the class surrounded him after PE. When they all got changed and gathered in the homeroom, the class collected their things by the end of the day. Who knew you were so? Who knew you were so athletic? Your strategies were really good, Oshi admitted. Better than anything I could come up with. Yeah, thanks for helping me with my quirk, Tachibana added. I'd never thought of it using for camouflage. Midori seemed rather overwhelmed, but he wasn't freaking out as much as usual. They showered him with praise, not asking too many questions, so Shinso didn't have to act as the translator that many times. But before the clock quite reached the end of the day, the one question he had been so worried about finally uttered. We never got to ask, said Oshi. What's your quirk, Midoriya? It's like an intelligence. Is it like an intelligence or agility? Supposed Kana. Midoriya looked to Shinso in fear, but Shinso never had to make that horrible decision to let his only friend out on his biggest secret. What are you still doing here? Exclaimed President Mike dramatically as he burst through the door. I thought you lot would hurry off at home as humanly as possible. As soon as humanly possible, he said, hurrying over to his desk to pick up a pile of paperwork. We're just talking, sir, explained Oshi. President Mike's gaze rested on Midoriya. Ah, yeah, you were pretty awesome today, favorite student, he said without shame. You don't need a quirk to do stuff like that, huh? Well, see you tomorrow. He was left as quickly as he had arrived, leaving the silence behind him. Shinso glanced back at Midoriya. He was shaking. Wait, you're not quirkless, are you? Someone guessed. Midoriya looked down with his bright red shoes in humiliation. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Humiliation. I'm so sorry. Holy shoot. You're awesome, scoffed Watabane, who sat next to Midoriya in class. Midoriya actually jumped in surprise, looking up at him. He was rather tall with wide eyes. Yeah, President Mike's right. You don't need a quirk to do that all cool stuff. I've got a quirk and I can't do half of what you can do, added Tachibana. Midoriya is the one with the 91 on the entrance exam, Shinso told them, resting a hand on Midoriya's shoulder. I knew it, sighed Oshi. I only got 37. I bet you got all those marks in the quirklessness question, huh? And plenty of other stuff besides, Shinso insisted with a menacing stare. Yeah, whatever, she said with a wave of her hand. Anyway, see you all tomorrow. I'm going to miss my train if I'm late again. Not a single person uttered a word against Midoriya's quirklessness. Shinso's gaze scared off anyone who tried, specifically Koneko. Midoriya didn't sign a word, but Shinso didn't need that to tell he was grateful. They walked together out of school. Shinzo could see a soft smile forming on Midoriya's face. "We'll see you tomorrow," Shinzo said as they were about to part ways. "Don't worry about them knowing about your quirklessness. I promise they won't see anything about it, untoward about it." Midoriya hesitated before nodding. Satisfied, Shinzo turned and walked away. But just before he could go any further, Midoriya reached out and grasped his shoulder. Shinzo turned confused, and then the smallest smile imaginable, his mute friend opened his mouth and whispered, "Thank you," and nothing more, turning and walking down the street before Shinzo even had time to change to reply. Shinzo was there, quiet as he walked home. He didn't say a word to his parents about as he put down his stuff and shut him in his room. He stood there, staring at the book on quirklessness he had left open on his bed the night before. Midoriya was someone too afraid to speak to anyone. Shinzo was someone that everyone was too afraid to speak to. But out of them all, the only one who would utter a word to was him. I hope you liked this very much. Go check out Cloud9 and 3/4 on AO3. They're really good at writing it. I find their writing strategy with the spaces in between really good. They also, I don't know if they write more stuff. Wait, let me just check real quick. But the Canary series is really good, and you should totally check them out on AO3. I can't do the link yet in the comments in the description, but if I figure out how to do it, you will see it pop out. Otherwise, I will just reply it, say how to check them out in the thingy. Oh yeah, they write more fanfic. And I have never read them, but they seem really good. Check them out. Bye!